Hello and welcome to another criminal case out of Denmark. Today we are talking about the Louise Borglit case. This case has just started in court today, and it's only the state who has done their opening statements. But let's talk a little bit about this case. Back in 2016, this young woman was murdered while walking her dog. She was almost 8 months pregnant at the time. This happened in a town called Herlev, just north of Copenhagen, and she was walking in this area where she was found at around 7 o'clock in the evening and pronounced dead. She was stabbed 11 times. She had defensive wounds in her forearm. She was stabbed in the chest, the buttocks, and the face. And especially the stab to the face will have a big importance for the state's case in this particular instance. This is a case that is pretty unusual. It had been cold for some years. The police had talked to a man they thought could have been involved in this case, but they let him go. Later, they put an undercover agent into the same prison as this man who befriended him and recorded their talks, both on video and also on tape. This is a big problem for the defense. They don't want this to be admitted to court because they say this is akin to an interrogation, and if you are interrogated, you have the rights of an interrogated. So you have the right to know what the charges against you, you have the right to have your lawyers present, and none of this happened in this case. The state, on the other hand, said, we didn't force him to do anything. This undercover agent only recorded what he voluntarily said to them. They didn't pressure him to talk about this case. And today there was a motion in court to try and keep it out, but the judge declared that as the court doesn't know what's on the tapes, they will listen to them in court and then rule if it could be evidence. Today was played a bit of a recording where he talks about the stab wound to the face, sharing the nose clean off the face of the young woman. This is what made the police bring charges against this man, because that was not widely known that her nose was cut off in the attack. He's heard talking about the child dying in the wound and the nose being cut off, and the police thinks that he's the only one who could have any knowledge about it and be the murderer. But there's no physical evidence linking him to this murder. There's no murder weapon found. There are no DNA traces. There are no cell phone data placing him on the spot. The police actually interviewed this man on the murder night, not in relation to this case, but because he has mental problems. His neighbors had called the police because they were afraid of him. The police talked to him. He was drunk, he was agitated, but they didn't deem he was a danger to anyone, so they let him go. 4 days later, he checks into a psychiatric hospital because he's afraid he's going to hurt people. And that makes the police look at him again. They interview him, search his apartment, but find nothing of interest. Now he's in prison. He has a long record. He has threats, violence, and an attempted murder on an ex-girlfriend. And in this prison, the police put in the undercover agent who befriended this guy and talked to him about the case. After the charges was brought against the man, they raided his cell, and in the cell they found clippings from news articles about this murder. And there were no other cases, there were no other clippings of other cases, so the state believes that it's only because he have done it, he has an interest in this. It's not like he is interested in murder cases like you and I, and therefore he keeps some articles about it. No, it was only about the murder of Louise that he kept on the cell. And remember, he was searched in 2022, 6 years after the murder. That, in the state's eyes, indicates he has something to do with it. But again, no murder weapon, no DNA, nobody puts him on the place. There is a description that matches him somewhat, but they haven't any concrete evidence placing him on the scene, at least yet. We'll have to follow the case and see what evidence do they have other than just the recordings, and if the judge allows these recordings to stand as evidence or the defense gets them thrown out. It was supposed to be the state presenting the case, and then the defendant should be interrogated in court today about this case. He hasn't been interrogated about the case before. He didn't want to cooperate with the police. It's like it is in the US. You have the right to stay silent. It doesn't indicate anything. But today he was supposed to be in court talking about the case and being questioned about it. But after the state presented their side of the case, the defense said the defendant had fallen ill and had to be taken back to prison. So the day ended early, but it's a very special case. I haven't heard any other cases where there's so little evidence presented in the opening statement. This guy is only on tape and video. They had him bugged in prison too, so they have sound recordings of him in there too. But again, there's no physical evidence as of yet. Nothing presented about him being at the scene, having murdered her. So it'll be interesting to follow this case and see what is the state's evidence for this, and do these recordings stand as not testimony but as evidence in the case. But it's been a long time coming, 5 years since the murder. She has been, it was a very gruesome case. She was almost 8 months pregnant. The child died along with her. And I will be covering the case, trying to do these small recaps of the day. In Denmark, I can't show any pictures from the court. We don't have that in Denmark. So you have to get the written recap I do, but I'll hope you will follow along, and I'll hopefully get better at speaking English and make it more easy to understand what I'm trying to say. But thank you so much for watching this day one in the Louise Borglit case.